Hey folks, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Off the Record with Frankie. Today I give you an interview I did with Zakk Abrams, lead vocalist for post-hardcore band Hotknives based out of Hamilton, Ontario. The band just released a 4-song EP entitled One this past Friday, and it sounds awesome. Really heavy and really catchy. I would definitely recommend giving it a listen. Zakk and I also chat about his giant vinyl collection and why he had to move back to Canada from the States. I hope you enjoy.
Every single day, I'm pulling back, mountains in my way, worn and weathered past my skin again. The way the sun.
If you've listened to any of the other interviews I've done, COVID's always like the, icebreaker convo.
Yeah.
How's things been going for you during these weird and crazy times?
Just like you said, it's been weird and crazy for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
For me, like I haven't been working at all, so I've just been kind of going a little bit stir crazy, but it gives us a lot of time to write and put together some more content for the future.
Mm-hmm.
We've already started kind of putting together our next release and things like that, and looking into studio time and stuff, which is something that we wouldn't have been able to do if we were all, working our 9-to-5s or whatever. So as much as it's been difficult, like we've been at least making the best of it,
Yeah, for sure. What was your 9-to-5?
I was working at a store in Burlington that's basically like a rock t-shirt shop meets like a bong store.
Oh, cool.
So I sold vaporizers and Rush t-shirts basically.
Wicked, dude.
And when everything kind of started happening, my parents live in the States, and so I was pretty on the ball about what was happening with the border and things like that. And so my boss really didn't see an issue with it, and not to get too into it, was pretty unkind about the whole situation to myself and the other employees. And so I just kind of left. And so now I've just been taking the time to, better myself and get better at, studio production at home and doing demos and things like that. So, I wasn't exactly happy with that job anyways. It was just kind of, my 9-to-5. So
Yeah. Just something to pay the bills.
100%. Yeah.
Right, man. Where do your parents live?
They live in Tennessee right now. They used to live in Southern California.
Oh, no way. So that's that was how you mentioned that you'd been in other bands both here and in the States. So you have dual citizenship?
Unfortunately, no. I'm still in the visa process. So basically my story, I guess, with the visa would be like my parents and I moved down there probably like 2012, 2013. And everyone was supposed to move down there. We were going to stay down there on whatever visa it was. I don't remember it now. And eventually, because of my age at the time, the lawyers didn't realize that I would eventually age out. So I kind of got a letter one day saying, you have like 6 months to get out of the States.
No.
So that was a few years after. So I'd been playing in a band called Stanley and the Search. They're now called Home Movies, or were. They're not a band anymore. But I basically had to give that up, move back here, and kind of restart. So tried to start some bands, tried to join some bands. Now I'm currently in the green card process, so eventually I'll be able to move back to the States when I want to. But it was a pretty crazy time. I got to move to Southern California, join a cool band that was touring, and then got a letter that said kind of, you don't get to do this anymore.
Oh my God, that's awful.
Yeah, it was. People have it a lot worse, like I didn't get ripped away from my family or anything. At least my parents are well off, and I'm pretty privileged in that sense. Like, my parents are together, so we were able to work through it. And, I'm pretty lucky in that sense. Right. Mm-hmm. But, at the same time, it was definitely hard, but everything kind of happens for a reason. I think the theme of my life is just bad luck. So I kind of turned that around, and, I ended up joining a band called Riot Axe. That was fun while it lasted. I ended up in a band called Parkside that was really great. It was with some of my best friends, and two of those guys are in Hotknives now. So I feel like if this didn't happen the way it would have, I'd probably just, be okay with just kind of chilling out and fading out and not doing the music thing anymore, but having to keep changing it and restart has like kind of kept that drive up, you know?
Right, yeah. Well, yeah, let's talk a little bit about like the formation of the band, because I know you guys have been together as Hotknives since 2018, but you had an EP come out in 2017, and it was an online project before. So what exactly does that mean?
So it's funny. So a lot of people ask about the EP and say 2017 because that's the date that we posted online. That record actually came out in 2013.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I was basically living with my parents in California, and I was in a band with some friends that I had met, like literally the first people I met when I moved there. Didn't really go anywhere. We played like 2 shows. But through them, I met a friend of mine named Nick, who introduced me to a guy named Nicola, and he basically was looking to get more into recording, and I had this record, which is the first EP, just kind of sitting on my computer, and so he gave me a good deal. We recorded it, and the studio we recorded it actually was the drummer of Stanley and the Surge's studio. So while we were tracking, I met this other band, and they were like, hey, we're going on tour in about a week. Do you want to learn like 6 or 7 songs and kind of come with us? Because we don't have a second guitar player. And so I just said, yeah, and I did that. And so this record came out and kind of just faded away because I did this other project. And then when my visa expired and I kind of came back here, a few years went by, I recorded another song called Knives. And when I put that out, that was 2017. I put everything on Spotify and everything back online. So that's why that date says 2017. But essentially, it was just me and my computer and this guy I met recording. And when I moved back here, I jammed with a few people. It just didn't really work. And everything worked as me playing guitar in Riot Axe or Parkside. So I just kind of rolled with that. And when I met the Parkside guys and it started to kind of, I guess, dwindle, you know, I was more or less a fill-in at the end, you know. I wasn't on the last record or anything, but the band started to kind of fade out, and we all wanted to continue to do this, and Simon and Aiden were really, really into heavy music as well, and so, you know, they're great musicians and great friends of mine, and so it just kind of worked out that I had decided to start doing this again, and this other thing was fading out, and these guys wanted to do it, and you know, we've been recording since probably 2017, 2018. Like when we released Afraid, that was the beginning of the cycle for this whole record, and so in that time we you know, started working with Dylan and started working with Jonah, and you know, kind of incorporating all these different pieces, and like Rob doing all of our videos, and it kind of just fell into place, you know. I kind of expected it to be an online project that got to play shows sometimes, and we would just put out more music and hopefully people liked it, and then slowly this thing kind of snowballed, you know. It's
wicked.
Really cool. Yeah, and people really seem to be responding great. Like, you know, when we put out Afraid, and when we played our show at Emo Night, people were, you know, holding me up and moshing and going nuts and singing along, and as great as that is I never would have expected it, just because these were like bedroom songs to me for so long, you know, and I love them so much, but they're always just for me, you know, and it's great to share them with people.
Yeah, man, that's cool. I did see some of the footage from that. It looks like you guys put on one hell of a show, so
thank you. Yeah, we try. It was amazing. Yeah, everyone that you know, every time anyone comes up to us at a show or talks to us or even just hasn't seen us before, the look on their face is either like, you know, I love this or hate it. But most of the time, like, you know, especially in Hamilton, you know, we did well in Hamilton with Parkside. A lot of our fans and friends are from here. And so the fact that we aren't like this pop punk band anymore, and we're kind of this, like, I guess, kind of post-hardcore or whatever band, it's been nice that it translates and everyone still kind of digs it. I wasn't sure how, I didn't like to say we're Parkside 2.0, but I know a lot of people see us that way because we're 3 of the 5 guys, right? And so it's it's very rewarding and very heartwarming when people say they enjoy it and they like it, and like you said, just see the clips online and want to come to a show. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. So where did that emo night take place?
It was at the Doors pub in Hamilton.
Nice. Yeah, and then were you before you moved to the States, were you living in Hamilton? Why Hamilton?
So I moved to Hamilton. I originally I grew up in Mississauga.
Okay.
I had always liked Hamilton. I always thought it was kind of cool. And I was switching jobs. I was just kind of in a transitional period, and it was kind of right when this band was starting and Parkside was ending. And so I just was like, I could move to Hamilton, I could move to Burlington. I was looking at Toronto, and I kind of just weighed out my options, and Hamilton felt right. And so I found an apartment, and, Simon was living here at the time, and we didn't know Jonah at the time very well. We just knew him through his band Goldfinch, and he lives 5 minutes from me. So it just kind of worked out really, really well. And Hamilton's always just been great for us, it feels like a DIY city with a great art community, and the venues feel like they're not pretentious, where I felt I toured with my old bands, like I said, and there were so many times where I felt out of place when I showed up somewhere, and I've never felt that once in Hamilton.
Yeah, even
in Ontario it's pretty rare. I feel like Toronto, there's a couple venues that I'm not exactly fond of playing. I don't want to name names, but it's I don't go there if I don't have to, right? But Hamilton, there's nowhere that feels like that. So
cool.
I couldn't imagine being based anywhere else.
Yeah. I mean, from a lot of the interviews I've done and conversations I've had with, at least local, Ontario bands, also just for the scene, they say that Hamilton still does have an active hardcore scene. Even it might be pretty small, but it's a lot bigger than, say, Toronto is one, or at least easier to find.
You'd be surprised. In Hamilton especially, I'll find that shows on a Thursday night will do crazy, and where other places won't necessarily do that well. When we did our little run with Nightwell in January, we were super surprised, because we did a free show in London with a very mixed bill, and the crowd was great, but we were just expecting a different type of crowd because of what we'd heard about London.
Right.
And it was kind of more traditional concert. It just wasn't a hardcore show, and that's fine, right? We were kind of the odd ones out and whatever. But we were super surprised because Milton, where we heard was going to be super hit or miss, and we weren't sure. Trauma Lanes and all the other bands we had on the bill were super cool. Tons of kids came out, and it felt like I was at a local show at a YMCA in 2008 or 2009.
Yeah.
I remember going to see bands The Fellowship and Kingdoms and all these old hardcore bands, and it was just this cool community, and it kind of disappeared when all these bands broke up, and you can find pockets of it, right? And Hamilton's definitely the loudest one, right? They're waving that flag high.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's talk about the new EP. Is it I or one?
It's one.
It's one. Okay, yeah. It's just
we
hard to
made
read.
that mistake of doing the Roman numerals, and we keep getting asked. But yeah, it's one. We decided that the old EP where it was just me kind of felt like a whole different project. But at the same time, it still embodied a lot of the same characteristics and emotions, and so we talked about changing the band name. We talked about changing a lot of things, but we felt like just, running with what we were doing was more us. And this was kind of the restarting point. And so we decided to call it One. Cool. And kind of go from there.
Well, yeah, man. Where was it recorded?
So we recorded with our friend Brandon in Howell Studios in Oakville. and we did most of the instruments there. We also did some at his home studio, and then we did the rest of the record. I actually don't know if his studio has a name or not, but with Kyle from Nightwell in Toronto, we did pretty much, I think we re-recorded almost all of the vocals with the exception of the prior singles and Bones there. We recorded the other three songs there, and did all of the mixing and like the post stuff there. And yeah, it was great. I really liked working with both of those guys. Like, we had a lot of speed bumps and had a lot of, things happen, but both of them really worked with us to get the record to where we want it to be. And, it's funny because now that we've been sitting on it for so long and it's finally coming out, I have my complaints about it, but I think it's just because I've listened to it too much, and I'm just overdoing it. But
definitely,
I love it, and I know the guys love it, and we're all very, very proud of it. And I think it's like a really, really good step forward, and footstep in the history of this band, right?
Yeah, I just want to commend whoever like mixed and mastered it. It sounds really, really good. Like that was a definite like tipping point. When you did hit me up, I was like, okay, well, let's just see what this sounds like. And 10 seconds in, I was like, yep, that's great. Like, these guys, you can actually tell that you're being as professional as you can be, and it sounds really good. So
well, thank you. Yeah, we like, this isn't it's not our first band, and we've all been in like serious projects before, and we didn't like, a big thing was getting Kyle to mix it and work on it was when we just thought it just needed that extra little boost, and Kyle kind of sent us a test mix, and we were like, hell yeah, like that's what we need. And so I should also mention that John Niclario and Nada Recording, he's the one who mastered it. They've literally, I didn't even know this until I was looking into him, but he's mastered every single recording I've been on since I was like 18 or something.
No way.
And I didn't know that. And so I just was like, hey man, you've done everything for me forever, and apparently we didn't ever talk to each other, so would you be okay with doing it? And he was super excited, and like it was, I wouldn't send it to anybody else at this point,
Yeah, it seems like you found a really good team of people to work with. So
yeah, by chance too. And like, we knew Kyle through Nightwell, and we knew he was good at what he did, but we'd never worked with him before. Brandon I met through Parkside, and he had never really done a hardcore record before. He'd just kind of done hip hop and some other bands, and so like we just kind of rolled the dice and it worked, and maybe for better or worse, but it's I'm glad it worked out.
I did read that Euphoria, which is the single you guys dropped this week, Euphoria Let Go, sorry, it was mentioned that this one took the longest to record. What happened there?
Oh, that was just that song was one of the oldest songs out of the demos. So it was like important to get the tones right. The ending of the song, we felt that the first few versions of it, when we recorded vocals for it, just didn't fit right. And I mean, I'm very like dramatic when it comes to like records. Like, for better or worse, like I listen to them front to back usually. I don't like I have rules when I'm making records. Like, I don't like the first or last songs being singles if there's more than a certain amount of songs on the record, because I feel like it's like a theatrical thing, and people put this body of work together. It kind of deserves to be listened to in that sense. And so yeah. I know not everyone thinks that way. And so even if they just heard Euphoria, or if they heard it as the last song, I wanted to make sure, and everyone wanted to make sure, that it like finished the record properly, right? And it resonated with the rest of the songs, and like complemented it and kind of wrapped it up in a way that didn't just push it off, right? It didn't just feel like it just kind of fell off.
Yeah.
And once we kind of changed things up and added in, like, there's a little bit of like vocal processing and things you can hear in the background, and like it just kind of tied it all together. And it's funny because it took so long to figure that out, and then one day we just did it and it was done, you know?
Right,
and
yeah. It's funny how that
as
happens.
much as I say it was the longest song, it also kind of was the quickest, you know?
Right,
but,
yeah.
It was definitely the most rewarding too, you know? I know Bones, like, we went in and it was pretty much like we knew what we wanted and how it was going to go, and then that's kind of what you hear, you know?
Yeah.
And same with the other two songs on the record. I know, you know, I sent the advanced copy.
Yep.
I don't know if you listened to it.
Oh, yeah, I did, for sure.
Okay, I'm glad. But, you know, the other people haven't really heard that song. If you saw us live, we were playing the song Gray live, I think since last year almost.
Okay.
So you kind of get the idea, but the songs are kind of cohesive, and yeah, we want to make sure that it wrapped up all cool, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And then why 4 songs?
Well, originally we recorded all of these songs together, or we were going to, so it was going to be a full length, or like a long EP, I guess. And we felt that given the state of things, like, you know, there's a lot of things to be said about like singles and like, you know, putting out 2 songs. We really liked when Locket put out those 2 singles together. And we just felt like if we put the record together, it would feel potentially incomplete because some of the songs would flow, like the 4 that we have flow together very well, in my opinion. Whereas if we were to add in like Afraid and Splinter, they might not flow as well together. And so we felt we would take kind of like the more hip hop approach and drop a couple singles, like one every 6 months or so. We kind of fell off that schedule, but, and then drop the record. And that way people get a good feeling of what we're doing, but then when they get the actual product, it's a little more cohesive, right? And so that's why, like, we have another 1 or 2 songs that we're kind of debating on releasing or just kind of keeping as B-sides that were from this record cycle. We've got, I think, 5 or 6 more that we're ready to go track. So we're kind of debating on what we want to do, if we want to start doing kind of the more full length cycles, or if we should go and just do another EP. I'd like to just personally, I would like to just do 2 and just do next year, put out another EP.
Right.
But we'll see what happens. You know, we've all been cranking out songs since COVID and all this stuff. So, I mean, if we can do a full length and it sounds good, like, I'm all for it, you know?
Tell me what the song I Want Your Bones, what is that song about? Or who is it about?
I mean, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but let's just say, like, I was in a past relationship, and through that, there was a lot of other toxic relationships. And it's just kind of like about not wanting to deal with this person, and like not being able to deal with this person, and just being frustrated, and like, you know, I just was having bad thoughts and I put them into a song instead, you know? Like, I was having a real hard time with my living situation and my friends and just everything, right? And and that's kind of was like my way of just getting it out. And it's funny because, like, it turned out to be this like really personal song, and I actually tried really hard to make it not that. Right. And I'm glad that it turned out the way it did, because, you know, I don't really care if these people that, you know, affected my life like this ever listen. In fact, I kind of hope they don't, because they don't, you know, they don't deserve it.
Yeah, it's not for them.
Yeah, it was for me at the time, and like I said, they were bedroom songs at the time, so it was just kind of like, I guess, venting. But it really turned into something that I feel like can be relatable to a lot of people, because a lot of people end up in these like shitty living situations or like shitty relationships, or they end up like complacent and they're just like okay with dealing with everything. And like, there's gonna be a point where that is not gonna be the same way you feel about it, and you're gonna snap, and it's gonna go one of 2 ways. Like, you're either gonna get out and it's gonna be okay, or it's gonna blow up in your face and you're gonna get out and it's gonna take you forever to deal with it. And so that's kind of what I was dealing with, and that's kind of how it came out. And yeah, that's essentially what it is. And like, even Aiden added in some of the vocals too, but they just correlates so much with the song, and it became this bigger thing than just about one person, I guess,
Right. Yeah.
even though that's kind of what it is about.
I also think that, even if you didn't want it to be as personal in the beginning, ending up and being a personal song is always, in my opinion, is always the better move. It just like you just said, it just it helps connect with the listener, right? Because
100%.
everyone goes through the same shit.
Well, even it's funny because so the song Gray on the record is like very much about like being depressed after losing somebody and like dealing with loss and things. And like that song, a lot of like people that have heard it have asked me if it's like about a grandmother or something like that. And it's not actually about anybody in particular. It's just about loss. But like the original vocals were like, it was about when I lost like my dog. And like it's, just about going through things. And like that's why I feel like this band too like is very relatable in a sense of like, we're all very like emotional people. We all go through things. Like none of us are perfect by any means, and like we all kind of just lay it out on the line and are just very honest, and maybe to a fault, but it makes it more relatable to the listener because everyone goes through this stuff, and it helps to talk about it. And if you don't talk about it, like, things just get worse. So, it helps us out to talk about it, and it helps people to relate to it. And hopefully it can help more people out with dealing with what they're dealing with, like that would be incredible, right?
Yeah.
It's what music does for me. That's what I hope it does for everybody, right?
Exactly.
And,
yeah, absolutely. Music is therapy for me. So I can totally relate to that. So tell me about Roberto Spadafora. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but
I don't know. We call him Slobe. I honestly don't know why that's his nickname. That was his nickname when I met him. Okay. It's not even a real word. I don't know what it means. Everyone in Parkside had nicknames except for me. It was just, I was the new guy, but it was hilarious. And because they're literally like, most of them in my phone are still like Aiden Parkside or Slobe or Slime or whoever, right? And but he was the vocalist in Parkside, and so he's been doing videography with like I don't know exactly the company he works with, but he also has Spad Productions, his own company.
Okay.
And he's just been doing music videos for a while and doing like weddings and things like that. And when we kind of showed him these songs, him and Aiden work very closely together. So he heard them and got very excited and was like, I think there's a lot I can do with you guys, and like I'd really like to work with you. And so we basically just said, yeah, because we're homies, and why not? And it was like the best thing we could have done because it was such a great process, and we had such a great time. And it was for the Afraid video, and it just worked out great. And so, like, we're literally planning on another video with him in the next couple days. We're going to do a call and figure it out. But we love working with him. I don't know if we'd do it with anyone else, at least for video wise,
Yeah,
We work with
he's done all of your videos, right?
Every single one, yeah. And he does a lot of bands in the scenes. Like, I'm gonna screw this up. I know he did a New Design video. He did a Judgment video. He's done a lot of guys. Arcane Ghosts, I believe, if I'm not screwing their name up. Yeah, like he does a good amount of videos, but they're all like quality videos,
Yeah,
and
they
they're
are.
all like, in my opinion, like really great and up and coming bands. And like, I don't know, I've never seen anything that I don't really like, If anything, I just tell them that because I want to bug them. But it's I don't see working with anyone else, We really like working with different photographers and getting different like types of stuff, but he's even great at that too, so.
Right. Yeah, man. Like you said, the quality is there. I had a really good time looking through all your videos. That's my background, is video production, so that's part of what I like doing when I'm getting ready for these interviews. Is I'll listen to the albums back to front, but then I go deep into YouTube and like find every video I can on the band. So it's funny, like up and coming bands tend to have like their video team that they work with. I know a lot of bands do that just because, cost wise it's effective, especially if it's friends. You get the friend price.
Yeah.
But it always works out too when the friend is actually really good at what they do, which he is. So kudos,
Yeah,
Rob.
I almost don't let him give us the homie discount. Like I usually pay him pretty close to full price because we know that it's going to be a lot of work with us. We're very intense with what our visions are. Like, you know, especially like I know for a fact, like Bones, like we just paid him like asking price kind of thing. And like, it was because he had to go out of his way and we had to figure it out because we had a whole video plan and COVID happened and
right.
You know, we can't go and do all these locations and all this type of stuff when, you know, everything's shut down. Like we couldn't even get a set to film on, right? Even though we knew people that ran studios and like it's you can't do that and put people at risk.
Yeah.
Even if you've got the ins, you know what I mean? So
for sure.
that video I went out and bought tablecloth and we covered Aiden's basement and blacked out his basement and shot it in a basically COVID safe way and did it when we waited long enough that it wasn't like the most like detrimental thing to any of us, but we also like waited till the last possible second so that it was safe and he pulled it off and made it look great and we feel super happy about it. And like, I wouldn't feel comfortable at, you know, paying him a discounted rate when I make the dude do all that, you know, he's dope at what he does. And like, you know, I'm not going to half-ass him, you know, or like or half-ass payment, right? Like he's just, I don't know. I don't want to talk too much about money, but if I can say anything about Rob, he is 1000% working with, and anyone that's on the fence about getting a video done should hit this guy up because he's only going to get better at what he does and it's only going to get more expensive. So,
right.
You know, just hit him up now.
I appreciate that too. Just like wanting to pay the full price, you know, like, you know, being in any sort of creative artistic field, it's really hard to, you know, make a living. So that's good for you for like wanting to do that. I'm sure being a musician too, you totally know what it feels like to like put your heart and soul into something and then someone be like, so like $50, is that cool?
Dude, 100%. I would love to get our videos for $100 or $400 or whatever people get cheap videos for, but like, you know, we all kinds of stuff, you know, like we try and keep everything modest and we try and keep everything respectful because, you know, we're just, like I said, we're honest people and we try and make sure, you know, if you're fair to us, we're fair to you. And I think that's the way to go about everything. But it's hard, especially when young bands don't have opportunities to work with good people and then they get like discounts and it ends up, you know, looking like shit or turning out like shit and then they're forced to put it out because they spent every dollar they have on it. And, you know, we've been lucky enough to kind of take our time and save and we all work decent jobs so we can put the money in, right? But like it's really hard. It's really hard to be a young band right now, especially, you know, with COVID. You can't just go play shows. There's 8,000 bands that sound the exact same online. And you're swimming in a sea of content because everyone's trying to be a creator right now. Like I remember when COVID happened, it was funny because everyone's like car mounts for their phones sold out because everyone was trying to be a YouTuber and like it's like, you know, you got to compete with that. And like, you know, we're dropping a record tomorrow. Taylor Swift just announced she's dropping a surprise record. That Gulch band that has all this hype is dropping a surprise record. Like we're up against a lot. And so if you don't prepare, like you're just going to sink. Right. And so, in my opinion, it's real hard to be a band, but you just got to tough it out, you know?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that for a little bit. Bands aren't able to perform right now, which is really when you're up and coming, that's how you build your fan base is people come and see you live. So
man, that's us. That's all we are is a live band to me. Like we're great for our videos and we're great to listen to on a record, but you really feel everything like we're trying to express it when you see us in person, you know? Like for better or worse, you know, at that Doors show, like I move backwards and kind of push into everybody and everyone gets excited because there's like people moving and the guitars are feedbacking and I'm screaming my head off and Aiden's singing and we're all having a good time. And, you know, it's a different feeling. Like when you get to see a band live, like, you know, just like I said, I like to listen to records in a full sense. It's just like that's different than a single, you know. It's hard to push your music right now online. So many bands I know and love are just getting kind of swept under, you know, and it hurts to see. But at the same time, you know, I think what's good about it is the bands that are strong and the bands that are like in it to win it are gonna make it through this, and those are the bands that are gonna get noticed by labels and management and people that want to help them out. You know, bands like you know, I saw you did that interview with the Way the Anchor guys.
Yeah.
And you know, I've known a couple of them like off and on, not really like tight with them or anything, but for a while now, and their music may not be what I listen to, but they're doing like they're pushing hard, and you can see their effort, right? And
for sure,
people will take notice of that, you know, especially in times like these. So it's you're gonna see what happens with time, right? And who really wants it.
If you guys were to get signed, or you know that starts becoming a possibility, who do you think for you would be like if we make it with this label, we like you can die happy?
I mean, I gotta speak for myself because I know if we got an email at all ever, our band would immediately argue over it because we have such different backgrounds. But
right.
For me, I love like Epitaph and like the old school punk labels, right? Like I really like Death Wish. I even really liked like, you know, Secret Voice for a while when they were doing stuff like Jeremy Boehm from Touche Amori's label. Dude, if it was like 2013, man, I would kill to be on Run for Cover, right? But it's we've kind of talked about the label thing, and like we'd be more interested honestly in like management and PR and help with financing and things like that rather than a label, because like right now like labels are kind of fading out, and like independent distribution is something that is like really taking off, and like, you know, I'm like the opposite of a Drake fan, but I read an article about how whatever label Drake is working with or whoever owns some of his music, like if he were to fully take back his things and go independent, they were saying the music industry would end. And like, I don't necessarily think that's true, but if all these huge artists did go independent, it would be very interesting to see what happens. Right. And so for me, as much as I love the idea of being on a label and, you know, being with someone like Pure Noise where we get to tour with Rotting Out or The Story So Far or Counterparts or, you know, any of those bands, it honestly kind of scares me to sign a contract like that in a time like this, right?
Oh, for sure. Definitely.
You know, I mean, 5 years ago, I probably would have felt the same, but been more open to it. I know my past bands, like my bands in the States, had talks with labels before. We put out a release on Animal Style, I believe, which was like a California label, and they were great, but it was more of an independent label. So we also worked with Take This to Heart when they were a little smaller, and they were all great labels, but they were a lot smaller, and so you had a lot more interaction and like care, and like, you know, the idea of being on like, you know, I Love Hopeless, but having to deal with them and just ending up being a B market band for them potentially would suck. That would be detrimental to this band, and I'd rather not do that. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I had a big conversation about this with another artist, totally different style of music, but Birthday Club, and you just felt like I'd rather just do it myself, and at least that way I have all the control, and I can do whatever I want this way. So yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I mean, this is a kind of crude way of putting it, but a label, depending on their team and depending on how much they care about you, can essentially just feel like a bank loan, you know? And like, so if you get all this treatment and all this stuff, and at first it's great, and then eventually you just owe this money and you owe this stuff, and you get emails every once in a while saying you got to do this or we got to talk about this, and like, you know, not like labels necessarily work that way, but some of them unfortunately do, and especially for bands like, you know, say our record tomorrow does really great, and then the next one we put out is, you know, kind of at the same level, and there's no increase in movement or traffic or whatever, they may see that as like, well, you're falling off or you're whatever. And it's like, well, maybe, there's other outside factors, or maybe we're still a small band, right? And so, yeah, for me at this point, labels aren't really a big, I guess it's not like not an option, but I guess it's just not a priority right now. We'd be more looking for someone who can help us, unfortunately, obviously with COVID, this kind of gets thrown out the window, but we want to go play in the States, we want to go to, like the hardcore videos we see coming out of Japan are insane, like anywhere in the world, like we want to go to Japan. Right. And so, that's what we want. We want to figure out how to get our music to more people so we can play in front of more people. And
that's interesting. What are some like big names coming out of Japan right now?
Well, I mean, I don't necessarily. There's what was that band? There's a band I saw their video. They're like Horsehead Nebula or something like that.
Okay.
And this guy has just like ridiculous deathcore vocals over this like hardcore kind of beatdown kind of band, but I think they played like a festival with Knocked Loose out there, and so I was just kind of going through the local bands through Hate 56, because every couple weeks they'll put up a new one, and it's a local band from out there, and like most of them, even if they're not like my style, are just killing it. You know?
Right.
So
that's awesome.
And the kids love it. You can tell even if there's a band that no one's heard of, they're still going off. And
yeah, for sure.
So just to be able to experience that and experience like a different kind of culture, like, I've been lucky enough to play in the States, and same with some of the other guys, our drummer was filling in for Young Culture on their last tour. So he got to experience like most of the States. And so it's cool to go down. It's so fun. We want to get back there. But the idea of going to somewhere like Japan or, the UK is just like, I've never been outside of North America. So that to me, just as, personally would be huge, but to play music there would be, bonkers.
I think you guys would do well in Germany too. Germany's hardcore scene's pretty alive.
Funny enough, like not most of our, but a good chunk of our listeners that are from outside of North America are from Japan and Germany, at least through Spotify.
Awesome. Wicked.
Yeah. So I mean, those would be the two places we aim for, I guess, if we were to pick something right now, but
cool.
I don't think shows are happening anytime soon.
You mentioned to me before we started this, I was just asking for some fun facts about you and the band. You mentioned that you're a pretty big vinyl head.
Yeah, I used to spend way too much money on records. The last 6 months or so, my record player's actually been broken.
Oh, no.
I've been pretty good about spending on it.
Right.
And yeah, I went and spent like $100 the other day, but it's something that I love. Like I said, I love listening to records front to back. So when I was a kid, like buying CDs was so important. And like, when I started buying records, like I realized that a lot of times you got all this extra artwork. Sometimes like you'd hear things that you'd never heard on CD before. Like I remember I put on The Things We Think We're Missing by Balance and Composure.
Okay.
And I can't remember what song it is. I want to say it was like Notice Me or something, somewhere in the middle of the record. But there's harmonies that I had never heard and like backing vocals that I'd never heard that I put on the record, and I heard them all of a sudden, and the song just kind of like grew, and like,
wild.
Certain things that are recorded on tape and made for records, if you have a good sound system, like there's nothing like it. And
definitely,
my best friend calls them musical frisbees. He's like the opposite of me, and he hates records. And it's to each their own. Whatever's easy. Like I totally get the convenience of I love Spotify too, but to me, like waking up in the morning and putting a record on and having a coffee and just kind of like going through your emails and like waking up and stuff, like there's no better way to start your day or to ingest music,
Yeah, for sure. It also sounds like you're once you guys put out a full length, you're going to be thinking of it in the sense of like, if this was a record, what's the A side, what's the B side, how's it telling its story from beginning to end? Like you definitely have that mindset too, which is very cool and very rare these days.
100%. We actually did that. We have this record mastered for vinyl as well.
Oh, cool.
And we have all of the singles mastered for vinyl as well. We're just having the debate right now. Vinyl costs so much, and we don't want to sit on 100 records. We don't want to press them all and be stuck with them.
Yeah, especially if you can't sell them at shows, right? I'm sure that's where they would sell the most.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want to charge people, $15 for shipping or whatever it is, because Canada Post sucks. So, we're kind of on the fence about waiting and like maybe putting out some more singles and then putting out more of like a compilation type record, or doing like everything just later all at once. But I would love to just put everything out on vinyl out of like 100, and then that's it, and just kind of build this catalog of records. I love it when punk bands have like 1,000,000 7-inches that I'm trying to collect, even though it's terrible for my wallet. I love it.
Yeah. Oh, for sure, man. I totally get that.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first record you ever bought?
Yeah, I stole it. Well, for vinyl at least.
Yeah.
For CD, the first record I bought was Offspring Americana.
Nice.
But for records, like I remember this girl I was seeing in high school kind of got me into vinyl, and we went to this record store, and the dude was a total like just dick. And he was hitting on the lady that was there and couldn't care less about what I was looking for. And I was going to basically start my collection. So I had like money in my pocket ready to spend. I'm young and stupid. And so I kind of was bummed out, walked around, and I found a copy of Black Flag, Slip It In.
Oh,
and
sick.
I had always been like super interested in Black Flag, but I'd never really got into them.
Right.
And this was like, I looked on the back and it had Henry Rollins on it. And that was like, from what I understood at the time, like the guy to listen to from Black Flag.
Yep.
And so walked around, waited in line, tried to pay, and basically was there for like half an hour with the thing in my hand. And I basically said, if I can walk out of the store with this record, like, it's mine. And I literally did. And so that was the first one I got. And then I think the first one I actually bought was I found this. I don't know if you like kind of grindcore or any of the heavy weird shit, but
yeah.
I used to like this stupid band called I Wrestled the Bear once.
Yep, I know them. Yeah.
So their self-titled EP came out on a 10-inch.
Okay.
And so I ordered that, and so I still have that. But
Cool.
That was the first one that I actually bought.
What would you say your top 5 records are that you have in your collection? Maybe top 3.
That's tough. I recently figured out my record collection is like, if I sold at Discogs pricing, it's like almost 10 grand.
No way. Oh, hell. So you have a lot.
Yeah, I have like hundreds of records. I would say my favorite records that I bought, Trap Them, Darker Handcraft, because I found it was like my favorite hardcore record. Probably is one of the reasons I started Hotknives, and I found it at Hot Topic for $6.
No way.
And I was basically hunting for it online, couldn't find anyone selling it, and I just walked in and found it one day. The next day I went to a different Hot Topic, and I found a Gallows Death is Birth 7-inch. And that's like the first one with Wade from Alexis on Fire on it. And so that's probably one of my favorites too, because at the time I was looking for that and I just happened to walk into it. And besides that, I think my like holy grail is probably I have 2 copies of it's like a double flexi 7-inch from Dance Gavin Dance. And they're two songs off. It's like Backwards Pumpkin Song 3 and another one or something. But the only way to get them was to pre-order meet and greet tickets with the band. Okay. And I missed it. And so I went to the merch table and basically said, look, I'm here from Canada. I'm in like, I was at like House of Blues in San Diego or something. Right. And I was like, I'm from Canada. I know you have these 7-inches. I know you have extras. And like my friend is at home sick, so I need 2 copies. And I was like, I'll pay double for them. I don't care what it is. It's just if you have extras, like please, I need them. Okay. And the guy literally sold me 2 copies, so 4 of the flexis. And he sold them, I think it was like $20 or something. And I went back and bought him a beer and whatever. And so now I have these flexis at home and then a pair on my wall in like frames.
Oh, that's cool, man.
Yeah.
That's wicked. All right, Zakk. So my last questions now. How do you find new music and new bands outside of maybe Spotify, like everyone else?
Oh, damn, that's so hard, man. Honestly, a lot of times, it's bands that we play with, unfortunately, or me just kind of. I live like probably about a 5-minute drive from the doors, 20-minute walk.
Okay.
So I can just kind of when shows were happening, I could just head down there and hang out. Same with bands that I tour with, or used to tour with. They'll go on tour and be with new bands and things like that, or a lot of times, honestly, just like Instagram. The other day, I found like an alternative press article that was like the top 50 bands in the States, and I felt like most of the bands were kind of not a good representation of their state necessarily, because I've definitely heard better bands, right?
Right.
So I'll go on that and then like related artists, or go on their Facebook and look at tour posters or flyers for shows or whatever, Twitter is a good place too, but I feel like Twitter's kind of like a wasteland right now. Like everyone is just very political.
Yeah.
And it's it's important to be political, but it's mentally draining sometimes. And so
For sure.
we've at least for myself, for Twitter, I try and stay off. I try and stay to Instagram and Facebook and just post when we need to post, or when I'm checking stuff out, like time limit it, But other than that, unfortunately, like there's not a lot of good ways I find to find new bands. Like I said before, there's so many, right? And there's so many that sound the same. And so if you find one, you might stop looking, right? And the next one is great. Like I have these lists that I've started where if I rediscover bands, like I'll put an extra like tick beside it. And so if I come across a band like 5 times, obviously they're doing something. And if I like the music, then someone worth watching.
Right. What about a favorite like new band that you've come across?
Oh man, as cheesy as it is and as like hype beast as it is, that new Gulch record that's going to come out tomorrow is going to be sick.
Yeah.
My friends in Oklahoma are in a band called And in the Darkness I Was Free.
Okay.
They're like kind of like post rock or like emo or something.
Okay.
Super spacey and weird, but they're all instrumental, and so like
Cool.
It's just very vibey. It's very cool. Besides that, like I've just been on a lot of old music. Like I've been listening to a lot of like Rancid and like Bad Religion and like
Nice.
Basically I go to a punk festival every year, and obviously because of COVID I didn't get to go, so like I've just been in that mindset.
Right.
There's a sick band actually. They're kind of more on the punk side, but if you guys or anyone listening likes heavy music with just like cool melody and melodic shit, there's a band called Pears, and they're sick. They're so good. Their new record is awesome.
Cool. Is that pears like the fruit, or pears?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly like that. Cool. I heard a story where they got a music video budget of like $400, and they spent like $300 on acid and $100 on a camera, and that's what their new video is. And when you watch it, you're like, oh, that makes sense. Like, I've never done acid before, but I feel like I have after watching that video.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, definitely worth checking out.
Cool, man. And let's see, what else do I have here? Last question is, who is the most underrated band, in your opinion?
Ooh, that's tough. That's tough. Tell you what, I'll give you my most underrated local band.
Okay, yeah, let's do that.
So there's this band that me and actually Rob love. Specifically their first record. Their second record's cool, but it's a lot weirder.
Okay.
But they're called Sydney. They're from Burlington and Oakville, I believe.
Okay.
But if you listen to their first record, it's like it holds up so well, and just the way the vocal melodies and things go, like obviously it's a local band, so there's a lyric here and there that definitely if a producer got their hands on, they'd change it, Guitar tones are dated, right? But like to me, like when I put on a local band that I haven't heard in a long time, I always go to that. I just always go to that.
And is that Sydney like the city?
Yep, exactly like
cool.
that. I actually have the record right here. Give me 1 second. I can tell people. It's actually just the self-titled, but it's Worth the Drive to Acton is a great song. Seething. Yeah, just worth checking out.
Cool, man. Sweet. Well, I think that's everything from me, man. Thanks so much for taking the time, Zakk. Sorry about the 2-hour delay.
Oh, dude, no worries. I'm literally just here answering emails, so it was no biggie.
Wicked. Well, yeah, man. Yeah. Cool. Thanks so much. Congratulations on the EP coming out tomorrow. Hopefully, we'll get to see you play live one day soon.
We're working on it. You know, we didn't want to just be one of those like live stream bands, but now that our drummer actually just had a bit of an accident and hurt his hand, so we're not going to be jamming or playing for a little bit. So I mean, luckily it was during COVID, so we wouldn't be having to cancel anything.
Right.
We're gonna try and set up some sort of like live stream or whatever if shows don't kind of start looking like we're getting a ballpark of when they're getting back. So I mean, hopefully you can look out for that at some point.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's probably going to be the future for the next year at least, is just the live streams.
Yeah, we were even looking into like going into more rural areas where there's no COVID, but it just doesn't make sense. Like we're coming from a city, we're just going to bring it out there, right? Like it's not safe for anybody. So
for sure.
We're going to let a few other bands, just like, the comedy world is letting a few comedians do it first and test the waters. And we're going to let that happen too and just keep putting out content online and trying to be present,
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, cool, Zakk. Thanks so much, dude.
Dude, thank you very much, Frankie.